Welcome everybody to whose show is it anyway? This is episode number 6, which happens to be my lucky number. So it's kind of cool that this gets to be my first time on here. Today I am joined by Anomalies host JJ Flegel,
Yep.
as you know him, Flegs. And this is your second time on, right?
Yes, second time on
Yeah.
this one. Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. And the topic we have today is paranormal. Just paranormal, not paranormal activity, not paranormal behavior, just in general paranormal things. So,
So
um,
when you hear paranormal tone, what do you think of? What's the first thing? Couple things.
I was gonna say my immediate thought goes to like ghosts or like moving objects, stuff like that. Just because I had some experience with those kind of things, so that's kind of the first
Okay.
place I go. And then probably after that, I would guess like aliens and stuff. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, I think
second
ghosts
spot.
and aliens are kind of the two main things. My little homework I did, apparently folklore kind of falls into that paranormal. So like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and all that falls into this. I've not really dug into that, so I don't know how much we'll touch on those types of things, but kind of that folklore falls into the paranormal activity or category as well. Excuse me.
I mean, I
So
guess that kind of makes sense because those would be sort of paranormal outside of the box. I guess we could start there if you want. Flags, do you believe in Bigfoot?
I I don't know about Bigfoot specifically, but I know there's got to be big giant animals out there, whether in the water or in the wild, in the mountains somewhere that we just certainly have not explored and documented. So
Yeah.
I don't know if what we know as Bigfoot is out there, but there's certainly probably some large animals, especially down in the sea for sure.
I think that yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we're more likely to have a Loch Ness monster than we are to have a Bigfoot, just because I feel like if we had Bigfoot, Google would have found him already.
Yeah. There's so many
But
cameras on, above ground, not so much underwater doesn't seem like yet, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I feel like that's kind of where that goes. I can't think of any other that would kind of fall in that range. I know Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster are kind of the big ones in that genre. Yeah,
Chupacabra is one of those as well.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
you kind of hinted at something that
Yeah.
I have never experienced myself. You said you've had some paranormal experiences with objects moving and such. So,
Yeah.
get into that. What happened to you?
So a little backstory. I'm a military brat, so I grew up a little bit all over. But one of the stops we lived in for a decent amount of time was Iceland. Moved to Iceland when I was 5, basically. Was there till about 7. And from day one, living in that house, even actually before that, my dad had moved there like 3 months before us to get everything kind of set up. And my dad basically was like, "Listen, like." Some, you know, like stuff's weird. Like I remember like him having that conversation with my mom, like not really like kind of cluing us in. Um, but then just like 2 years of weirdness. So I don't know how into the paranormal you are, but I've witnessed couches move by themselves.
Oh, whole couches, not
Whole
like just like
couches
holy
just
shit.
move across. I've witnessed, and keep in mind, I'm a religious person. So like, I know sometimes some people are like get weird about it, but I'm a religious person, and I do believe this. But
Same.
I witnessed my grandfather walking in our hallway, which was very interesting. And the biggest thing, the craziest thing was actually it's called auto writing. Do you know what auto writing is?
I've heard of this actually. I was watching some kind of history channel, something or other, and then they kind of dug into just this week. I learned exactly what auto writing is. So,
Yeah. Sweet. So I've witnessed my dad do it. My dad is an auto writer.
okay.
He taps into it, and it does sort of. I've never done it per se. I've had some moments that felt like it, but not full blown. But my wife has said I've like sat up in the middle of the night and I was just writing into the air and stuff, like
Yep.
weird stuff. We've had some weird instances in that, but my dad would straight, almost like you couldn't talk to him. Like he would just sit there and he had a pad and his hand was just moving, and like he was zoned, like not even really looking at the paper. It was just like
Yeah.
writing, and very much like changing of his handwriting.
Oh,
Like
so not his traditional handwriting. It was like
no.
completely different person writing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then like 20 minutes later it could have been somebody else and it was like different handwriting. And then it could have been like a child's handwriting. It was like weird, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, so wild. So I watched this happen at a young age. And ironically enough, uh my there's also sketches, so like he would also sketch stuff, and my brother's an artist for a living now, but I remember one of the first things my brother drew, and he'll deny it, but I like witnessed it with my eyes because my brother's like kind of detached a little bit from it and was like, maybe what we saw wasn't really what we saw, but it was a little bit too real to be like um
Sure.
but like I watched him like with assistance as like the first time ever drawing like a human style face at like the age of 7, like not, and he was drawing like stick figures, like detailed stick figures,
Right.
but like stick figures ish. um and like he drew this like detailed face of a pilgrim. It was for a project at school. He actually got in trouble for it because they actually turned it back and said that somebody else did it for him, but I watched him do it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
um but the weirdest part of it was like, so part of the reason why I'm religious, or what kind of swayed me, was I was a very skeptical kid as a kid, and
Sure.
had some bad run-ins with churches and stuff, and just not the types of places you would really want to like foster your religion. The kind of places that give Christians kind of a bad name, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
feel like a lot of people run into that, in
yeah.
the especially the evangelical church and, certain denominations and stuff for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So it's wild. So I remember just being like, okay, there's all this stuff's happening. I'm like 6 probably at this. I know for a fact I was 6. But I was just sitting on the couch one day and like my dad's auto writing and my mom's like sitting next to me and she's kind of zoned out too because she's kind of like empathic and like she's like just zoned. So it's like, think of it like you have a 6-year-old, your mom's zoned out, your dad's like auto writing. It was normal at that time because it was like it had been happening for like a year.
Yeah.
Almost every night. It was wild. And so I just remember I was like, God, if you're real, like I'm a skeptical guy. Like I need a sign. Like I need a sign.
Sure.
And and people can debate it. I know it happened. I tell the story the same way every time. Have for like 31 years of my life. At that moment, basically, like the pen that my dad was writing with, he like let it go, it hit. He looked up at me. My mom turned her head to me, sitting next to me on the couch, and in a dude's voice, literally was like, Anthony, I'm the voice of God. I'm real. If this is what you need, this is what you get. I'll always be here. Boom, my mom's head turns around, and then she looked back at me and she's like, what are we having for dinner? And it was, and I didn't say it out loud. I didn't say that prayer out loud. It was like, oh, okay, I'm sold.
There you go. Yeah. I don't have anything quite that direct. And I think probably what you're describing, most people would describe as like a miracle, which I would also call paranormal, right? Because it's outside of the normal. The only thing, I grew up very religious myself. My dad was a preacher. My mom very religious, and my only really experience in like something along those lines is when I was 12 or 13, maybe 14, 13 or 14, I'll say. I was detasseling corn one summer, and just in the middle of summer heat, our tractor broke down, so we had to walk the fields. And everybody, and in the cornfields, like it just retains all the moisture. So not only is it hot and humid, but then it's extra humid in the cornfield as well. And you're just getting cut up by all the corn stalks and everything. And people were like getting dehydrated left and right and like passing out, throwing up. And I was basically to the point of passing out. And these fields were probably half a mile to 3/4 of a mile each row, distance wise. And I was a believer at this point, but I was like, I'm about to pass out. And so
Yeah.
I prayed. I was like, God, if you could help me and, hydrate me so I don't pass out in the middle of this field and I can make it to the end of this row. And I've actually never told this story to anyone before, so this is the first time I've ever told
Nice.
it. And I felt completely normal. I had just a swig of water left, and I was like, if this prayer doesn't work, I'm going to chug this water and hopefully make it. But I didn't need it, and I felt completely refreshed and like just full of energy. It was pretty wild. That's really my only quote unquote experience in the paranormal.
Yeah.
But I think miracles definitely fall in that category as well, which I think is kind of more. If we were to describe what we just had, people would probably say that's along the lines of miracle. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
I
call it
think
any number of things.
I know the thing that I've run into is when I tell that story. Like, and I have some super religious like folks in my family. They'll be like, "Well, that was a God, that was a demon," and I was like, "Well, either way, they told me to believe in God, so and I still do." So
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because one of the topics I looked up is very briefly is talking to like mediums and psychics and stuff. So have you? Let
yeah.
me ask you this: have you ever been to see a psychic or had your fortune told or cards read or anything along those lines?
So I've been to I've had a tarot reading done before.
Yep.
That was a little a strange. I don't know how much. Maybe it was just that person. I'm sure there's probably is something to it. That particular one didn't seem super legit, so I was like, I didn't really put a lot of weight in it. My parents are super big John Edwards fans. Do you know who John
Yep.
Edwards is? And so we've gone like 3 or 4 times, and my dad's gotten definitely has been picked out of the crowd twice, and so like it's like, and both times like my dad's a pretty like skeptical guy too. Like I mean, even though he believes in all this stuff, like he looks for the ways that they could have figured it out. So when he goes there, he'll he won't talk in line, he won't say nothing.
Right.
So like he doesn't fill out any cards. There's like so he's like he believes them. I'm like I've been there with him. I've witnessed it. I haven't seen him fill anything out. He wouldn't say anything. So I'm like, there's really no tell. And in the show of it, like him kind of like going back and forth with them, he didn't like give any tells that would be like, to like for him
Keep
to
'em
play
off.
off.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, I've been in the room. It feels weird, like when it happens. I've had it. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So that I have been to those. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think personally, there's some kind of a spiritual realm out there. And I think some people can tap into it. And I think probably the majority of the people are, just massive frauds.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but Harry Houdini was
Yeah.
big into the spiritual realm to some degree because he felt so strongly about it.
Yeah.
When his mother died, he went to go see a couple mediums and stuff to try to communicate with her. And he's like, oh, these guys are frauds. And having like a magician's eye and knowing like tricks,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, you're just doing this. Oh, you're just tapping this under the table and it's making a bell ring over there or whatever. He's like, oh, these guys are frauds. So he would actually actively go like to seances and stuff and like
Oh,
call
cool.
these people out in the middle of the seance, be like, I could do exactly what you're doing. And he would just like blow these people's careers up back in the day.
That's so awesome.
He actually even went to Congress. Somebody proposed a bill basically banning fortune telling for gifts or monetary purposes. You could do it voluntarily, but there was a bill back in Houdini's day, and he was like, all these guys are frauds. But
Nice.
that being said, he made a pact with his wife as well. At the very end, he's like, if anybody can communicate from the grave, our bond is so strong,
Yeah.
I will be able to communicate with you, or vice versa, whoever goes first.
Yeah.
And there's actually a bunch of musicians who every year on Halloween still get together and have a seance and try to connect with Houdini. So a little bit of a history fact there.
Yeah, man. I think that's definitely a cool. Like, I mean, I think the possibilities, the thought of it, like, you kind of want it to be like, I guess, like you don't want like as a Christian believer, I'm like, okay, like there's an afterlife. Like I believe in heaven and earth, heaven and earth, and hell, and that. sort of thing.
Yep.
But it's like you're like when you're there, like what if you could contact those people? What if you have like a few instances where like I mean, there's people who are like, they'll get like a necklace from their grandmother and like they'll wear it and it feels like whatever. It's like I told you guys in our group a story about playing music, which was my grandfather was a musician. He is actually did mostly gospel songs,
Mm-hmm.
but certain songs he would he would write that weren't obviously in the gospel vein. And yeah, one day I was home alone. I popped it open and it was all on a disc. My uncle had put it on a disc and just like the scans of his handwriting. And I just opened it up and I started playing it. Played it all the way through, like I knew it, and I was like, okay, I got to set up a camera. And I set up a camera and I played it, and it happened to be that it was on the 25th anniversary of his death.
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't even know that. And it was wild. And then like if you watch the video, it kind of like warps a little bit, like as I like move and stuff. Like it's the only video I've ever had that's like that. And that feeling, like it felt like there was somebody there. And like so, like I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then my grandfather passed away. My other grandfather. And my mom and dad were up in Michigan with him, and I lived with them at the time. I was just like back from college, and my room was at the end of the house. And so when they were gone, I would keep the room and the light in the hallway on. And so like under the door on the wall, you could see if anyone was approaching, just as like a safety measure or whatever. Not that they lived like in a neighborhood you'd have to worry about that, but I remember like kind of waking up in like chills and being like, like what's going on? I feel weird. And then I saw somebody walking up the hallway. You could see him on the door, and I was like, this is weird. So I like got up and I like turned the doorknob real quick, and there was nothing there, and I shut it, and the stuff was still there on the wall. And I was like, that's weird. And then literally like 2 minutes later, my mom called me to tell me my grandfather passed away. So I was like, so like I believe in that kind of stuff. I felt like that was him coming to be like, hey, like,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I've had some paranormal. Most of my paranormal were ghost. Never seen aliens that I know of. I mean,
yeah. My grandma, she always swore. So she was a farmer with my grandfather and all my aunts and uncles up in northern Indiana, actually not too far from where Jems lives. And she always swore up and down. She'd go outside, and we always just assume as airplanes and stuff. But she always swore that it's like, oh, there's my UFO flying across the night sky or whatever. So there's always a certain time or whatever every night. And it's like, well, flight schedules, it could be a recurring thing.
right.
But she's like, no, this one's different. I know airplanes and whatever. So speaking of aliens, we kind of spoke of the likelihood of like folklore and a Bigfoot and all that. What do you think about aliens? Is there a possibility that there's other beings in the universe?
I'm of the thought that there has to be, or
yeah. Okay.
I mean, it just seems so crazy that there would be. Like, and if you think about it, like in the sense of you're like, what if we're the only planet with people on it?
Right. So like I kind of going back to my own background in Christianity, that's what I'm most familiar with. Like God created the heavens and the earth and whatever. Yeah. And then, once he created the heavens and the earth, then he focused on like earth. It's like, well, yes, he created this existence and what happens here, but what's to say after day 7, he didn't get back up and start a whole new one somewhere else, right? And like, okay, well, these guys are made in my image. Let's go make these other guys who look really freaking weird. I don't know. So I see to think that we're the only ones, I don't know, kind of speaks a little bit to the hubris of humanity sometimes.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that there's almost without a shadow of doubt, has to be additional life forms elsewhere somewhere.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, I think about it like, so when like the Mars rover lands, right? And you're like, okay, cool. Like, let's check it out. And I'm like, you're like, it looks kind of like here. I mean, obviously, we're not
Yeah.
feeling the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, so we don't really, you know, it could be 700 degrees there. Obviously, it's not livable
Right.
for us. But like, what would happen if like one of these times we do land and it's like there's something moving and you're like, oh shit, there is life. Like you're like, but also then you're like, what if we landed a rover and like on Mars, and Mars is just like we were before when we were like molecules. Like
Right. Yeah, it's like
so,
pre-life.
yeah. So it's like maybe it's coming, maybe it's not. Who knows? Like, but the fact that we could get out of our Earth and go to other places, I mean, we can't be the only ones who. But then you're like, how come we haven't really experienced it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and you know, who knows? Maybe we have, and you know, it's kind of either lost to history or lost to secretive governments or whatever, and conspiracies and all that. You know, what is that New Mexico town? That little town in New Mexico,
Roswell.
Roswell. I was thinking Rover, but we were no. You kind of, I don't know. Well, do you think if there, since we both would say there's definitely alien life, what's the likelihood we've been visited?
I feel like it's a 1,000% chance we've been.
Yeah.
It's like just like any. We're both dads. Just like any crazy ass Disney movie, you're like, somebody got rambunctious and was like, I bet you I could go there.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, so maybe it was like a kid alien. I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, like, but like we also have this like crazy technology though that's like leaps and bounds above. Like if you really think about it, right? Like I'm talking to you on a cell phone right now.
Yeah.
And you're what's call it like 4 or 5 states away.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I mean,
and it's live. It's like we're in person. It's crazy.
yeah, it's just like we're in person. And then we're gonna take the audio and video from this, and we're gonna put it out on the internet and for anyone to see. Like, and so like you're like my parents didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid. Like, so it's like I remember getting a computer when my dad won one in Iceland in 1989. Like, and that was a kind of a big deal, and it was like massive. Like, and that was even smaller than the original computers that took up whole rooms. Like,
Yeah.
like the things we've done in 120 years is like spectacular. So you're like, maybe we're just behind the curve, and maybe we're ramping up so fast, but like, and maybe that leads us to like be able to travel at some crazy speed that we can get outside of the dimensions of where we're at, and we can, who knows. But it's hard to believe that we're the only ones who would have some sort of technology like that. I do have a theory on like us as Earthlings. Like I'm like, we could either be the smartest people, and that's why we've evolved to where we are now, which is highly unlikely.
Right.
Or we're like the cast-off reject. We're like the Australia of the universe.
Man, these guys are idiots. Let's just send them to this stupid island in the middle of nowhere, Earth. They'll be able to live and survive, but man, we do not want them to be a part of our society. Jeez.
Yeah.
Look at the,
I'm like,
looking back at all of history, it's like we're kind of always been warring and tribal and aggressive and stuff. It's not like we've, as a human race, have fully banded together. There's still a bunch of divides and stuff, unfortunately, but to some degree, maybe we're just the Australians of the alien world.
But that's the crazy part. But then that kind of makes me think of like, what happens if aliens actually do come, or like we have an actual like alien like attack, like how crazy it would be. Like we'd be like, hey Russia, hey China, like kind of got to band together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an all or nothing thing here, guys. Figure it out.
Yeah, so it's wild to think. I mean, like we think this like Earth is like such a set fixed place, but I'm like, literally it could change like that. I mean, we've seen it in the last year with COVID and other stuff, but like imagine an outside force. So maybe the government is like intercepting them far off and like somehow keeps them at bay, and like I don't know, but we have picked up this technology. There's videos out there where like stuff is moving like UFOs. That Starlink thing, that looks like UFOs.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if have you seen them move?
I've seen one video of it, but
Yeah, we have them out here. You can see them; they move,
yeah, that's
and you're
wild.
like, and the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, definitely just saw a UFO. And then my wife was like, "That's Starlink. You're good."
Your wife would know too. So,
Yeah, yeah, for real.
I, one of the things that I always thought my first experience with a UFO was, and clearly I was way off. It was on around 4th of July weekend, and I was older too. I was probably 26, 27 years old. And you know those lanterns that you like light a little flame, it's got a little disc of like fuel, and then it heats up a globe.
Oh
It's
yeah,
basically
yeah,
a miniature hot air balloon, and you just let them off. It's kind of transitioned over to the US from like, China, Japan, the Eastern
yeah.
countries over there. And the first time I ever saw one of those, I'm like, that is either way far away but moving really fast, or it's super. I just did not. I could not identify what the fuck this was. I'm like, it's not an airplane. It's not blinking. It's moving really fast because there was a little bit of wind. I'm like, I
Yeah,
couldn't judge the distance of how far away it was because it was just a light. So my
definitely.
depth, and it was like at like just getting dark and stuff. So it was like kind of dark with a little bit of light left, and so that was the most freaked out I'd ever been about like seeing a UFO. But I've never
Technically, I mean, you didn't know what it was, and it was flying, and it was an object, so it wasn't
unidentified flying up. So by the letter of the law, I've seen a UFO. Later corrected, but
So Flegs, me and you are a similar age. I think I'm a little bit older than you. Um, like, do you remember like the ET like bike ride, like ET
Oh
phone home?
yeah. Put the basket on
Big,
the front and go riding through the woods.
yeah,
Oh yeah. I had many a times in my younger years, just sticks of Southern Indiana, riding my bike, mountain bike through the woods and stuff, just having a good old time, pretending to be ET and all that. Or not ET, but the kids.
like
So
Elliot.
yeah, Elliot.
Yeah, speaking of that, you just said Indiana, and I don't know why I've never put two and two together. Is Stranger Things in Indiana?
Yeah, so that's based on a fictional town. So it's inspired by the sticks of Indiana or whatever, and there's definitely some like places that could be an inspiration to it, but the setting of Stranger Things is in Indiana. Yeah.
Nice.
So
But I mean, that's all about paranormal stuff.
yeah. Oh, completely. Well, and I took some when I was in high school, I took some field trips in my psychology class to like some old closed down like mental hospitals and stuff, and toured
Oh,
those. And, high school, you go during the day, you got to be back at a certain time and stuff.
yeah.
So it wasn't anything crazy, but it was certainly like, holy cow. And then we watched, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and all that. And there were some vibes for sure that holy cow, there's something going on.
Yeah.
But oh well, it was more entertaining than anything.
It's kind of one of those weird things where you're like, you wonder what definitely like makes if we just go on the factor that there are like spirits or ghosts, like if we're just going off that assumption, like what makes one stay in a spot or stay in there, what makes it friendly, what makes it not friendly, you know what I mean, like those kind of things, those are the things that I think of, because I'm like, the things being there doesn't necessarily bother me per se, but like I've definitely driven, like I grew up
But why are
driving.
they?
Yeah, like I grew up driving in Virginia. That's where I started, and like there's obviously like Civil War battlefields all throughout there.
Oh yeah.
Like, and so like I've been driving in the middle of the night and like looked at my rear view, and there's definitely something in my back seat, and then like a double take and it's not there, and you're like, holy, like I don't know, like, and maybe that's, people will say that's your like eyes playing tricks on you, but I'm like, man, that just seems like that's probably a place. There's got to be a place. I mean, there's places where like thousands of people got murdered. You know what I mean? In war, that's got to be some kind of traumatic thing. You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
you
you
know?
would think so. I don't know. Well, and what kind of freaks me out sometimes too is my thoughts on like, because again, going back to the Christian background, well, prior to humanity, there were beings in heaven.
Yeah.
And Satan himself was an angel, became a fallen angel because he wanted to rule instead of God, and he took a third of the third of the angels and all that. And it's like, what are all those beings doing? And
Right.
what potentially freaks me out is, what if it if I see a ghost or experience something like that, what if that's not actually my grandparent or whoever, or my cousin who passed when he was 18? What if that's somebody like imitating them and presenting themselves as my cousin, so that I would have like a certain whatever? Because I know
Yeah.
God tests us too, so there's that aspect. It's like he allows things to happen to us and we have to react, and that's where he gives us
Yeah.
free will. And hopefully, but I don't know, we hear stories about like Job and losing his entire family and stuff, and I'm like, well, that
Yeah.
guy is way stronger than me. But I just get freaked out. I'm like, even if I were to experience a being, I
Yeah.
don't know that I would ever fully allow myself to believe that, oh, that's my grandfather for sure, or oh, that's my
Yeah.
cousin for sure. Because like, kind of like you, I always question everything. It's like, that
Yeah.
would be awesome if it was, and that's great, and
Yeah.
I miss the hell out of them. But boy, that's also kind of weird too. So
It is. It's like one of those weird things where it's like definitely an energy, and I can tell you for a fact. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess not for a fact because I don't know for a fact, but like I can tell you in the experience that I've had, we've had some like I've seen my parents like have like kind of like a freak out moment where it's like this energy is not good.
yeah,
Like, so like um and I felt it. You can feel like the energy change. You're like, oh, like, and so like it feels like you could probably feel the energy difference. But again, you just never know for sure. I mean, like,
yeah,
but I'll say I haven't really had. I mean, it's been a while since I've had like an actual like any kind of interaction with that. Not and then not that to say I'm not open to it. Like I think that's part of it. I think you have to sort of be open to it a little
oh,
bit.
for sure.
But then I
Which
also
also
think
scares the
like,
shit out of me, because once you open that door,
yeah,
what is
Pandora's
on the
box.
other side too?
Dude, right? Dude, I mean it is wild. I mean, just like crazy. Like the weird so like the weirdest one, right, is like my grandfather was probably like my dad's dad. Like he was a little bit not he was a great guy. He died when I was 4. Like definitely had some stages of his life that were like rough. He was married 3 times, had a
Sure.
had a little bit of like crazy background. He escaped a prisoner of war camp in like one of the wars. Like, I mean, he had a crazy life. When you like broke it down, you're like, holy moly. Um, but like when we would make contact with him, like via now my dad had this thought process of like there's something that like I know that like no one else knows. So like, and I've never verbalized it. So like he felt comfortable. He was like, that's that person.
Sure.
Like, because they knew it. So and it was their thing. So it's um, but like my grandfather would always be like, hey, like I remember it was like multiple years. It was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, whatever. Like it'd be the back and forth. He'd always be fishing. He'd always be fishing. And so it's like fishing, fishing, fishing. And it was like kind of like this thing where it's like that's kind of like what he was doing to pass the time. Like and then I remember my grandma passed away, and like that's like probably the last time I was really like in the room while stuff was going on. Um and then it was like talking, and it was like my dad like connected to his dad. It was like, what are you doing? And he was like, not fishing. Like grandma's here. Like it's like changed everything. Like it was just like the dynamic. So you're like, so like there's part of me that's like, is that what heaven is? Is there? And my grandmother in this scenario,
Yeah.
whether you want to believe or not, basically is like, there's telephones in heaven. And that's why typically, this is how she described it. Typically, it seems like when someone passes over early, they miss here. So like you might get some more interaction right away.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then it slowly detaches because where you're at is so perfect that you don't want to rush that person there, but you want them to be there.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
they're waiting for us.
Yep.
Like so it's like this weird like dynamic when you're like we always think of like, oh, they left us, but really now they're just like waiting for us. Like
Yeah. And can't wait to
so it's
have a
like
party once we join them. Yeah. Oh, I
yeah.
get it. So you kind of touched real quick on movies. Do you
Yeah.
have any favorite movies that are of the paranormal category?
I do actually. I have two. I'm going to say the one because it's funny. You put it on the screen yesterday. Ghostbusters.
There we go. Yep.
Ghostbusters is a great movie. Actually, I've liked all the Ghostbusters, even the remake one that people didn't seem to like.
I've not seen the remake one. I'm not opposed to it, but
I thought it was good. I didn't understand why people didn't like it. My favorite one though is, and it's because I've seen some stuff that really kind of reminded me of it. Was have you seen the movie Stigmata?
yes, I have. That's an
So
excellent
there,
one.
so there are parts of that movie that look like what I've experienced, and like the craziest thing about that is my dad took me and my brother to go see it in the movie theaters. My dad was like, "Hey, whatever, let's go." And I was 13. My brother was 15. So we were a little bit removed, probably like 6 years or so removed from like the Iceland experience. But
Mhm.
like we got there, and it was a brand kind of fairly new release movie.
Yeah.
We were the only people in the entire theater. Like kind of creepy. Like
Yep.
so you're like, okay, this is wild. But yeah, no, it was a that movie I like. It's hard to watch because it's like I mean, some of it's very outlandish. Like, if you don't know the premise of it, for anyone listening, it's basically this lady experiences like um, the steps of that like Jesus went through on his way to the cross, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and so like she gets the hole on her hand and she's like bleeding from it. She's like she does some like writing. She's like changes her voice. Some of that stuff though is very much I've experienced like almost dead on like that. So it's like.
Wow.
So it's like weird, but like I do enjoy that movie. I think it was a well done movie. I think I haven't watched it in a while, so I probably need to revisit it to make sure it still holds up. But
Yeah, I haven't thought about that movie in quite some time. When you brought that up, I'm like, holy, I'm definitely gonna have to go back and watch that. So, movie watchers, feel free to go back and watch that. I would have to say I've got two as well. One
yeah,
is maybe kind of expected. Signs is
oh
something that is just came out at the right time for me. It's just super suspenseful and everything. Like that genre of movie.
yeah,
I was never really into like horror and
yeah.
like just that kind of stuff. And number two is actually a really good family movie. Casper is an
Oh,
awesome freaking movie. I
Casper.
watched it with my girls not that long ago, and they really, really enjoyed it, and I did too.
That's
So,
awesome.
as a dad, Casper is a wonderful movie to go watch with your kids. So,
Are you you're talking about Casper with Christina Ricci?
yes,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, great movie. That's an awesome one. Actually, it's funny you said Signs because I almost mentioned it earlier when you were talking about your grandma.
well, I mean that too, because they were farmers, and we were always walking through, like I was detasseling corn as a teenager in my hometown, and up north, my grandparents were still farmers, so being around cornfields for me was just nothing out of the ordinary. And there was
Yeah,
times where like you would hear wind pick up, and wind is weird sometimes because wind doesn't always come from the same direction and it
nope.
changes. So like if you're just walking through the middle of a cornfield, cutting through a cornfield to get to our little fishing pond up in my grandparents, and you hear the wind on this side rush this way and then it comes back the other way, it sounds so creepy, but it's just like it's a breeze. But it
Yeah,
gets just your mind running like, was that an animal? Was that the wind? What the hell was that? So
yeah. I mean it's crazy too because like I think of like all of the ways that like life can like mess with you and like especially like let's say like this is gonna be probably I mean I guess it kind of would work in the realm of paranormal but like imagine like we have phones like I mentioned earlier we have all
yeah,
this technology and stuff like that but like imagine like something like the wind not that the wind would be like this but like like the Salem witch trials, like the craziness that like you have to like kind of be like, oh, so and so did this and this is why this happened, like, and like the hysteria of it because there's nothing to like offset it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like there's no way to disprove what this person is saying because it's just so outlandish. And then,
yeah,
their trials that they would go to, it's like, well, tie you up, throw you in the river. If you sink, well, you were innocent, but you're unfortunately dead. And if you floated, oh, you're a witch for sure.
yeah. I mean, it's wild. And yeah, just like the craziness. By the way, I actually learned a little bit about water the other day. This is going to be totally off on a tangent, but like I was listening to this new podcast that I listened to. It's called Things I Learned Last Night. It's a very funny comedy podcast.
Okay.
And they were talking about water parks and like wave pools. And did you know they put salt? Usually those are salt water because in salt water you're more buoyant,
Mm-hmm.
so you won't drown.
Yeah.
But I never really thought of it like that. I grew up around the ocean, but yeah, you're more buoyant in that. So like in a river, you're just sinking 95%. You're kind of straight.
I didn't even think about it that way. Plus, you got the current and stuff, and
oh yeah, and you got the bricks idea.
Yeah,
No, it is definitely wild though. But yeah, something like that you see, like you're like, oh yeah, that could be like. I mean, that's definitely a paranormal thing. I don't think there's ever been a documented witch per se. Like
yeah, like WandaVision type witch,
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, I think there's definitely people that have some sort of like. I wouldn't say superpowers because that's gonna sound super weird, but like, I think there are definitely people who are more in tune with certain aspects.
Yeah.
Just much like if like you go deaf, your sight gets better.
Yep.
Or like vice versa. Like I think things enhance depending on how like things around you have like definitely. And I just know from like having some childhood trauma that like some things just like stick in you. So like your mind can play tricks on you. So your mind's a little bit nuts, too.
God.
So
my mind's a scary place sometimes. My mind will freak me out more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head though. Like once you open that door, if you're willing to open that door for yourself, but then you also have to, like, some people are more naturally inclined and it comes pretty natural, but some people, like they actively work at trying to make connections and do all that. And as much as there's tricks and mind games that could be played, and maybe people are super perceptive to like facial tells, like poker players and stuff. There may be some of that going on, but I absolutely believe that people have that in touch connection as well, and people can work on that just like you practice for basketball or baseball or softball or whatever. Like you just keep working at it and you're gonna get better at it and more in tune.
Well, it's like one of those things, right, where you're like if I tell my kid like she plays basketball, like you're like if you go out and dribble for 4 hours, you're gonna be a better dribbler after a week. Like, you know what I mean? Like just that naturally you're gonna go put in the time. But if I stare at this camera that's off camera over here, my wife has a collection of cameras. I could probably stare at this thing for 4 hours, 7 days in a row. I'm never gonna move it with my mind.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so certain things you can't do, you know what I mean? But like also like if someone came in here and could move it with their mind, would you be open to that? Or would you be like, holy shit, that person can move shit?
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily, especially if it's in my own house. If I go somewhere else and something moves, I'd be way more skeptical. But if somebody comes into my house and like, that picture frame or whatever, yeah, that'd be certainly.
But it's like it's one of those weird things where it's like if you think about it, you're like until like say like we're both sports guys, so like until like Patrick Mahomes does something that like Patrick Mahomes does, and people are like, oh, I've never seen that before. You're right. You're like you've never seen it before. But like in this realm, it's like I think that's why people are so either for or like pumped by magic, because it's like that real life bridge. Like there's
a trick, but
it's a trick. But then you're also like, it could be legit though. Like if they do it, you're like, that's still wild. But like, yeah, that's another movie I was thinking about adding to this, but I like it's not really paranormal, but it gets a little weird. Have you ever seen the movie The Prestige?
I was going exactly that same place where he duplicates himself and
That's my
drags him.
favorite movie of all time. Like
That's a wonderful movie. Yeah.
it took me, and usually it's because I'm like I can figure things out really fast when we're at movies, and it kills the movie for me.
Uh-huh.
But like I did not know that he was doing like that. The Christian Bale character was that, and I was like, oh shit, duh. Like, so
Yeah.
it tripped me up, and I was like, fuck, I should have saw that.
Yeah. Well, Tone, do you have anything else? I think it was a fun discussion. I think paranormal is like we took it, our direction. This is definitely
Yeah.
a topic that could be thrown in the randomizer again for sure, because I feel like you get two other people, and this is going to be a completely different discussion.
Well, and I feel bad because we did tell the ladies over at the Smoking Pot Moms pod that they could be on here, and I think that they might have tried to get in, but I don't think they realized we were recording already, and that's just because today was crazy. We had a snowstorm here, and I went straight straight in.
Yeah.
But the thing I did, I thought of it like actually after episode 4, I think it was, because I also produce this podcast when I'm not on this podcast. Is I think after a certain amount of like maybe say every 10 episodes, we do something where it's like either there's more than 2 people on, but then we take all of the topics that have been used, throw them back in, and then you have to have a redo topic
Okay.
or
I
something
think
like
that
that.
could be interesting. Yeah,
I think
just
we'll
to get
figure that out, but
two
like,
completely different perspectives. Yeah.
because I mean, if you think about it, episode 1, and if you don't know, this is your first time somehow, like, because me and Flegs have different audiences than other people who've been on here. Like episode 1 was Marco and Trashman talking music. That could be an easily redo
Yeah.
topic. We had women's sports, which if me and Flegs probably had that would be completely different than if you and Tanner had it.
Yep.
What was 3? 3 was telephone etiquette. That could definitely have gone any other way. 4, what was 4? Oh, 4 was 90s television shows. That could have would have definitely probably gone different if me and you were doing that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the last one was obviously popular foods, which I think while we're here, let's just do it. I'm a taco person. Are you a taco person?
Oh yeah, gotta have tacos. Claire, you're wrong in every possible way. Hate to call you out there, but you're wrong. And the fact that you allow your kids to not like tacos too, yeah, no. I mean, I think Tanner said it first, questionable parenting there, but it's a staple. You gotta do it.
Definitely. And so since this day has been a little bit crazy for me, we don't even know who the next guests are or the next host are and the next topic. We will have that soon. So definitely, if you enjoyed the first 6 episodes, you're going to enjoy all of them because this is what it is. You're going to get a different show with a similar premise, but a different topic every time. And so far, I haven't not liked one of them. I've enjoyed every single one of them. So.
Same here. It's a good time.
I think it's a good way to get to know some of these guests. So the only thing I have left, Flegs, I guess, is tell everybody where they can follow you, what your podcast is, and what days and stuff you guys release and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at JJFlegel. I normally just go by Flegs, and Instagram I think is at JFlegel0206, and we're on the Anomalies pod. We normally release our episodes on Thursday. We're a little bit late this week, but we're trying to make sure we keep on a certain schedule so that we can just kind of keep it a little bit more organized. So listen to us on Thursdays when that comes out, and buy some Dano seasoning, some damn good stuff. Use promo code Anomalies.
Heck yeah. And I'm Tone. And if you don't know, I'm one of the hosts of Off the Rails podcast, which releases every Monday. But tomorrow we're actually going to release 2 episodes for Tuesday. And then the key is for the Iron Ostrich Network, which is what we're on, is I'm going to lock it in in April. You will know what date your favorite podcast is coming out. So it will be Monday by April. And yeah, so we have 2 coming out. We have a couple of good interviews lined up. You can find us at Off the Rails _pod on Instagram and on Twitter. You can find me at Patch of Black DFS on Twitter. That's where I'm at usually. And I believe me and Flegs are going to ramp up a Iron Ostrich Network TikTok account,
Yes.
and we're gonna hit it from two sides and crush it. So
Yep.
go follow us over there when we have it. It'll probably by the time this episode comes out, it'll be on the bottom here. So
You got it.
all right, I think that's it for me.
Same here. Have a good evening.
All right, later.